The intersection at 52nd Street and North West Radial Highway is near the Monroe Middle School, Benson High School, Gallagher Park, Rose Hill Elementary School, surrounded by many small businesses, houses, and apartments, and supports two major transit routes. It's a busy intersection that's poorly designed, neglected, and unsafe. In 2004, a pedestrian tunnel crossed under Northwest Radial Highway, but the tunnel was deemed unsafe, and by 2010, it was backfilled and replaced with a crossing at street level. Let's look at the results. ADA curb cutouts for all directions, pedestrian crossing buttons for all directions, each well signed with instructions, school crossing signs in all directions, including warning signs 400 feet before the intersection, a no turn on red sign on the northeast corner. What more could a pedestrian ask for? Well, a good design and periodic maintenance for a start. It's obvious that the design is inadequate simply by observing the intersection. Jesus Pastor-Soria, a teacher at Benson High School who uses the crosswalk every day, declares, "The crossing is simply dangerous. The lights take a very long time to change, and a massive traffic of motorized vehicles seems to be privileged over people in the intersection. Kids are impatient by nature and do not usually wait for the lights to change, nor do they try to find their way through the only crossing available. They just attempt to get to the other side from wherever they are. I see vehicles almost every day stopping in the last second to avoid running them over. A crash, which, if it happened, could be tragic due to the speed at which vehicles usually run on this road." Local shop owners, other residents, and high school teachers support those views. It's easy to blame the pedestrians for the risk they take, but urban planners, along with Omaha Public Works, agree that it's the design of streets and intersections that influences traffic behavior. Let's look how this design leads to risky behavior. This crossing is 130 feet long. That's longer than the crossing at Dodge and 72nd Street. Northwest Radial isn't wider than Dodge, but the 40-degree skew makes the crossing longer. A direct line would only be 98 feet, which is 30% less walking and 30% less exposure to speeding motorists. Speaking of speed, most schools get a reduction in the speed limit and flashing lights at crucial times, not just simple school crossing signs. The skew also allows motorists to turn at higher speeds, often accelerating through the crosswalk. And that's why so many pedestrians favor the shorter crossing that includes an island refuge. Pedestrians approaching Northwest Radial will always be greeted with a "Don't walk" signal. They must request a walk signal and wait up to 90 seconds while motorists are privileged to proceed. And the walk signal does not get transferred to the other side of the street. When a pedestrian on one side of the street requests and receives a walk signal, pedestrians on the other side don't get a walk signal or even a countdown, even though they are crossing the same street in the same conditions. It's obvious to pedestrians that these taxing signal restrictions are for the privilege of motorists, so pedestrians learn to cross with the vehicle traffic without the benefit of a countdown. This portion of the intersection is well marked with a clear stop line and crosswalk. The painting is a bit faded here and non-existent here. The city has completely neglected the two other crossings. The longest, most dangerous crossing, 130 feet across 8 lanes of traffic, is not marked except for this faded paint pointing in the wrong direction, a leftover from 2010 or so, before the ADA cutouts were installed. On 52nd Street, the motorist lanes got a fresh coat of paint recently, but the pedestrian crossing didn't. Whoever painted the lane wasn't thinking of pedestrians. The paint goes too far, encouraging vehicles to stop in the crossing area. So the actual crossing is something like this, with pedestrians pushed out near the high-speed North West Radial traffic. The poor design discourages good behavior. Many pedestrians stray as they walk, cross with traffic whether they have a walk signal or not, often running because there is no countdown, and choose the quickest route to cross the dangerous street. Motorists block pedestrians, ignore the "No Turn on Red" sign, turn into pedestrian traffic, and run red lights. And pedestrians must negotiate this intersection at all times, even when visibility and stopping distance are much worse, and the signal's lack of information has more drastic consequences. Fortunately, we can fix this. Short of tearing up the intersection and rebuilding it at 90 degrees, what can we do? Here are a few ideas. Let's start with a bump out to shorten the crossing, making the crosswalk more attractive while still allowing a metro bus to pull in. We could move the crosswalk for a shorter path with refuge islands, but let's look at the obvious low-cost changes. Paint the crosswalks accordingly, add a school speed limit 25 miles per hour when flashing system, observe and work with schools and communities for further improvements. When pedestrians have to wait more than 40 seconds for a walk signal, they start taking risks. With waits of up to 90 seconds, it's not surprising to see risk-taking like this. The signal timing should consider pedestrians as a customer, not a nuisance, with these changes. At the start and end of school, when pedestrian traffic is high, deliver the walk signal immediately upon request, or display it automatically when the 52nd Street vehicle traffic has a green light. At other times, walk signals should be delivered within 40 seconds. And pedestrians at all crossings should always be informed by an accurate countdown. We often hear that there are not enough pedestrians to justify such changes. If that's true, then the changes will be triggered so rarely that they will have little impact on the traffic patterns. If, as shown in these pictures, there are enough pedestrians, then the change is justified. So either way, there is every reason to make the signal timing changes and eliminate the risk-taking behavior that causes crashes and endangers all traffic. It's hard to make sense of what the city says about painting crosswalks, so let's look at what the city does. Pacific and Ridgewood is near a school and freshly painted. There are only 5 lanes to cross, and the speed limit is reduced to 25 miles per hour at crucial times. Only 3 lanes wide with a speed limit of 30 miles per hour, 42nd and Emily, is well maintained. The 10th and Cass crossing of 4 lanes of slow traffic is also well maintained. Eleventh and Jackson's crossing is crisp and fresh across its 2 lanes of slow traffic. 52nd and Northwest Radial is near 3 schools, is 8 lanes wide, with a speed limit of 35 miles per hour, and is not painted. We could find many more examples of less deserving intersections that get more attention than 52nd and Northwest Radial to illustrate the city's absurd application of crosswalk paint. Every street design manual considers the painting of all crosswalks at intersections like this to be critical. That the city of Omaha argues against such a basic and well-established requirement is disastrous and beyond comprehension. The city of Omaha has replaced an unsafe pedestrian tunnel with an unsafe crossing at street level. There is no doubt a qualified city planner can improve this mediocre and neglected intersection. The obvious steps are: paint the intersection, adjust the signal timing, improve the intersection design, observe and work with schools and communities for further improvements. The city of Omaha has recently committed to Vision Zero, a strategy to eliminate all traffic fatalities and severe injuries. The intersection at 52nd and Northwest Radial is a good place to start, with a design that makes it easy for motorists and pedestrians to do the right thing. Like any world-class city, we deserve safe, well-designed, clearly marked intersections.